Hello, everyone. Can you hear me okay? Yeah, backside. Hey, we're awake. Yeah, graveyard shift. Hey. After such amazing presentation, it's really hard for me to actually present. And this is one of the reasons why this talk is also about shame. I'm wearing so many hats, and a lot of the times I introduce myself as a serial entrepreneur, right? Closed couple of businesses, open couple of businesses. I introduce myself as a strategic accounts director. I introduce myself as a co-founder. And the only thing that I'm always ashamed to introduce myself as is a mom. So this is a very therapeutic experience for me. For the first time ever, on the stage, and I've presented to thousands of people in my past, but this is the first time when I'm walking on stage to say, hello, my name is Maria, and I'm a mom. Thank you. The reason being is I think that the role of the mother is so stigmatized. There is a certain perception of who you are. When you say to the employer, I'm married, a lot of the times the thought that is crossing their mind is like, oh, she's going to be pregnant soon. Or, for example, if you are pregnant and you're soon going to go on maternity leave, they're like, she's not coming back from maternity leave, isn't she? So there is a lot of judgment associated with our status as a mother. So that's why I'm so used to hiding it. So this is the presentation about leading from the within and actually owning your strength, because the most exceptional transitions in my career and financially for my family were happening when I was in my most vulnerable state, either pregnant or with a newborn in my hands. But this is a story about how I actually understood what exactly is working for me. And I remember that moment really well when my husband and I were sitting around the kitchen table, our newborn fast asleep, and we were barely making our ends meet. I had no maternity leave. We were working stupid hours both, but financially we was just not there. So we were talking about downsizing. We were discussing different scenarios, how we can make it work. And he said to me, why won't you come back to your corporate career? You know? Needless to say, that was a fuming conversation. So I said, why me? Why not you? Right? And then he said something with the perplexed, facial expression saying, I'm a hairdresser. You're the woman with the master's in business management, shining career and expertise. Out of us two, I can only earn when I'll be owning my business. So it's actually you who can help our family. And this very moment, somebody turned the light in the dark room for me. And I was like, yeah, that's obvious. Why didn't I think about it? And then that transition just transpired that I actually can. And I was in a very funny agency time. So I split with my business partner, opened my own agency, secured new clients, secured publication in Financial Times, Wired, in the first month of operating in my business, because I finally stopped waiting for somebody to take the lead. I was the leader. So why was I ashamed of my own strength, right? Because I'm coming from Eastern European background, and it's not very common for us to take the lead. But that doesn't mean you shouldn't, because it was the most logical thing to happen. So I think that that transition from shame into force made me who I am. And despite of the fact that I had a newborn, I was showing up with him to my Zoom calls. I was breastfeeding under the Zoom camera. Nobody knew. Like in this meme, how would they know? Same. And it was the force, because I was able not only to transform my own life, but my family life. I started paying for nanny. I actually managed to pay for my second IVF, for indefinite leave to remain, to pay mortgage bills on time, and also to employ people in my agency. So I was not only taking care of my family, I was taking care of other families too. And all of that because I finally believed in myself and understood that it is me. But this story is not just about me. A lot of women in the UK either do not return to the workforce after they gave birth, or return only for a short period of time, being completely disheartened with the financial remuneration and the nursery charges, and just come back to motherhood. Not because they don't want to perform or to work, but because they just don't have ability. Gender pay gap still exists, very much so. And if you are also coming from a cultural background where women should earn less, then you feel it twice, culturally and financially. And then also IVF. How do you exactly tell your employer, by the way, I might fall pregnant, but it might not work. So don't start looking for anyone to substitute me. So it's really tricky and it's a very lonely place. And we still manage to go through that, right? And we still don't claim our power fully. So I think that what really helped me is to understand that the very things I was considering weaknesses were my weapons. So for example, my pregnancy taught me to prioritize. You know, I've never prioritized better, but when you have this heavy bump and you have to understand whether you want to go on a tube today for a meeting, you kind of prioritize better, right? Because you don't want to go there. And then IVF finally brought control back to my life because, and I probably, that story will resonate with somebody. Month after month, I was crying after my period would come, which would mean I'm not pregnant again. And instead of having control over my life and going through the checks and starting IVF, I was just waiting for a miracle. So finally going for IVF brought me back that control, and I felt more empowered, even though I had to inject myself with some hormones every now and then. And then maternity and being actually a mother also helped me to understand what do I want and how do I prioritize it. And sometimes it's a mess. You know, the truth is I actually was trying to bail out today. Ask Anna. I actually texted her this morning saying, I haven't slept for 2 weeks. And today I didn't sleep at all. It's messy. I don't know how I'm going to show up. And Anna said, come as you are. So I won't be pretending. You know, it's a glorious journey. It is a mess sometimes. But it still makes me powerful because it teaches you to show up. You know, your last resort, your last window of help. Your child won't go anywhere else. You are the top manager, you know? When they're asking, give me a line manager, Dad, that's you, you know? And then the other thing that happened as well with the motherhood, I finally stopped being ashamed of quoting fair price for my services. All of a sudden, it wasn't a conversation about justifying it. I just calculated how much a nanny costs an hour. And then I was like, okay, is it worth for me to open the laptop even for the money you offer me or not? You know? And that again transformed the perception of how I want to be perceived, you know, like how I want to charge for my services, how I stand up for myself. So that taught me a lot. And I think that in some ways, motherhood is a hot mess. You know, how can somebody be too much and never enough, right? We juggle between Zoom calls, packing a party bag, then also checking another virus from a nursery, thanks. You know, sending kids to school, but then at the same time, submitting that report to your boss. And I saw a really good quote, I'm not a working mom, I'm an entrepreneur that happens to be a mother as well, you know? That's really true. And again, it's messy sometimes, but that's still okay, you know, because you still show up. And that idea that you can transform your faults into your force and your pain into purpose and your love into leadership is exactly what makes you unique. You know, I, as an employer, used to be like, oh, you know, parents, it's really hard to understand how much, how much time and how much energy they can contribute. Now I'll hire mom over anyone. And I think it's a reverse a bias, but parents, bloody hell, imagine your child is not sleeping and you still show up in the morning, still manage to do something and also get back to work, or get back home and still play with your child, do the homework and survive. Like, wow, you know, that's amazing. This is the force, you know, like this is the force of good that definitely can stay and contribute to the better world. So in some ways, I prefer to call myself now mom in progress, you know, like work in progress, but mom in progress. And I think that the question that sometimes you need to ask yourself is, what is my weakness that I'm afraid of? You know, what am I trying to hide? Why do I think I'm some sort of a square peg in the round hole, you know, where I'm trying to fit in, but actually I just should claim what I am. And I'll tell you what it was for me. I was 7 months pregnant last summer, going for job interviews. And I was hiding my bump, again, very conveniently, on the Zoom cameras until the very last interview. And, you know, I could have hidden it and said, look, I can only work remotely, but I put it on the table, quite literally, like this, and said, this is me, this is the state I am, and I came to the finals, and you liked what I do, so would you hire me? And you know what? They actually admired me for my strength and for my power and for my honesty. And it was almost a love from the first match. So, you know, sometimes leadership is not about experience. It's about whether you believe in yourself and find that love to yourself to say that I'm enough, and even my weaknesses can be my strengths.